Looking at 45 million, so round figures 225 million. Write me a check for 85 million, you can have both of them.
Now, exactly what right Dennis Hope has to sell land on uninhabitable planets which nobody owns is a slightly thorny issue. A United Nations decree makes it illegal for nation-states to claim sovereignty over new planets. But Dennis Hope says that can't stop individuals from buying up solar properties and being issued with a perfectly legal ownership certificate.
I knew that the General Assembly of the United Nations had written a space treaty in 1967, and they unanimously passed it, and in Article 2 it states, no nation may have sovereignty or control over any of the satellite bodies in our solar system. Thank you.
That's great. Is the lighting halfway decent?
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the...
Now, whether this gives rights for Earthling owners to sue for trespass if astronauts ever land on Mars remains to be seen. But whatever the legalities, business is thriving. Lunar Embassy has its own staff and its own website where you can buy Mars online. Some companies have even bought so-called subdivisions at a cost of $4,500. Presumably for the Martian malls, cinema complexes and sports stadiums all the new residents will need. Now, the success of this particular brand of lunacy means Dennis Hope now has his sights set on bigger and better things. He plans to start selling Venus in October. And so there you have it, the rather convoluted logic of buying property on a totally uninhabitable planet. Now, on a more serious note, July has
to avoid defeat in the fourth test at Headingley today, despite scientists have made an historic discovery in the United States. Start this again. And finally, scientists have made an historic discovery in the United States, an ancient limestone hunting ground for dinosaurs. Geologists have discovered a train of dinosaur tracks in Texas, revealing a lost world, lost no more. Gary Curtis went dinosaur hunting.
Steven Spielberg's monster epic, The Lost World, is packing them in Britain's cinemas right now. The stunning special effects showing how dinosaurs really looked. Now an equally startling glimpse of the Jurassic Age's Lost World has surfaced in Texas after floods washed away soil, revealing thousands of dinosaur tracks 70 million years old.
This is the first track. It's a right foot, and you can see the stride sequence as we walk along. He's got right foot, left foot, right.
The find in the town of Bern, near San Antonio, has thrilled the small town's residents.
I saw a lot of things come and go and die out and everything, and it's just interesting to me.
I couldn't sleep last 2 nights thinking about coming out here. I love it.
The tracks found belong to several species, including the Acrocanthosaurus and Iguanodon, which was 30 foot long and weighed 3 tons. Wouldn't it be great to see how they really lived?
Don't move! Don't move! Don't move!
No, maybe not. Gary Curtis, GMTV News.
They died out, you know, because the female dinosaurs refused to do any more housework. It's 12 minutes past 7. I'm back at house.
This only applies to Hessen. It could spread to other federal states.
The ongoing wrangling over Germany's official attempt to reform German spelling and grammar rules entered another stage on Tuesday. Newspapers had plenty of new material after Hessen's administrative court ruled that the reforms are not binding. That blocks the reforms in the state of Hessen for the time being, meaning it will not be introduced next year as planned. The judges said in their ruling that the country's state culture ministers could not implement such a reform without formal law changes voted on by the state parliament, especially since the majority of Germans find the reforms unnecessary. The complex grammatical rules of the German language have long tortured Germans and foreigners alike. Many Germans say the new rules don't make sense either. Few people can understand why using 3 Fs, which the new rules would require, would be better than 2. Schools in a number of German states restart on Monday after the summer break, and the pupils aren't the only ones unsure of what comes next. Their parents don't know either, nor do their teachers. And the teachers have to reconsider how they are to teach their mother tongue, either to use the old or the new grammatical guides. A lot of questions are still unanswered. Has the court decision in Hessen killed the reform? To prevent even more confusion, members of the National Parliament in Bonn may have to address the issue when they return after their summer recess. But odds are high that Germany's constitutional court will have the final say on how to improve German spelling and grammar rules.
Well, perhaps and perhaps not, because on Wednesday, the administrative court in the federal Free State of Thuringia ruled against a mother who had fought for the new spelling and grammar reform to be dropped. And I've been joined now in our studio in Erfurt by Dieter Althaus, who is the cultural minister for the federal state of Thuringia. Thank you for joining us. How can it be that a court in one federal state decides one way and a court in another federal state decides another way on the same issue?
There are differing legal assessments. One is based on the assumption that the basic rights of man, especially religious, ethical and political, would be affected if spelling and grammar rules were changed. But the judges in Weimar don't see it that way, and so the two administrative courts came to two very different decisions. I hope there will now be a final ruling made which agrees with the ruling of the Weimar court. That's the Thuringia Administrative Court.
Well, which court would have to make that decision, the final decision?
It will now go to an administrative appeals court, and if those judges can't come to an agreement, then the Constitutional Court will have the final say.
So you can't imagine a situation where children in one part of Germany will be learning German with the new rules and kids in another part of Germany learning the old rules?
That's a pointless discussion which has been instigated in part by politicians. I think that in German-speaking areas we need to have uniform spelling and grammar rules. We can't have them different from state to state, so the legal aspects of this need to be cleared up as quickly as possible.
You say it's a senseless discussion, but doesn't discussion also reflect the fact that there is a lot of controversy in society about this reform? Shouldn't the cultural ministers of the federal states perhaps take this controversy more seriously?
No, I don't think so. I think that the way has been prepared and the question of jurisdiction has been legally settled. State ministers of culture have been and still are responsible. In addition, Germany's state premiers have discussed it. The cabinet in Bonn has dealt with the reforms, so it's been quite clear to both state and federal governments that this is a decision to be made by the ministers.
Final question, when you write a political speech, do you write it using the old rules or the new rules?
At the moment, the old rules. On January the 1st, 1998, I'll start going by the new rules.
Mr. Althaus, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
We turn now once again...
Out of their exotic cockpits, they were entered into a computerized fighter challenge to find out who's really Top Gun. The event was kicked off by a celebrity shootout between Formula One racing driver Jan Magnussen and Wing Commander Les Garside-Beatty, a Harrier pilot with over 1,000 hours experience. But those hours in the sky counted for nothing in virtual airspace as the racing driver fired off a carefully aimed missile. But most important of all, they seem to have had fun.
It's not like just a computer game, you know, it's quite difficult, but I thought it was good, really enjoyed it.
You got him in the end, though.
Yeah.
A behind closed doors, all gloves off rematch. Yes, absolutely. It was good, actually. It was nice to fight him. Yeah.
And when the 100 or so other pilots who attended the Air Tattoo finished servicing and polishing their aircraft ready for the public, they slipped on some more appropriate footwear and headed over to a specially prepared blacked-out tent where the serious battles were taking place. Although some experienced pilots showed a worrying inability to avoid the ground.
Damn it. Guess that was me dead.
But you can't blame the pilots for the odd slip-up. After all, virtual reality doesn't really compare with the real thing.
I normally fly a Tornado F3.
And how does this compare?
It's a bit different.